sex and food. Most women are walking around really pent up and holding. Really? Some women don't understand that sex isn't mutually beneficial, that the exploration of what it feels like to actually be in the feminine for most women is such a coming home. The feminine really wants and longs for the solid ground to expand and unfold. How can you be the invitation for greater presence in your partner?
Sarah, welcome to the Vibrant Couple. I've experienced you many times as an expert on polarity and feminine embodiment. Welcome. Please say more about what you do.
To work with couples and individuals on really anchoring into a deeper expression of love, whether it be in relationship to each other or in their internal experience of themselves in the world.
Wonderful. So, in the work you and I do, we talked quite a bit about masculine and feminine. And we are also in other parts of the world talking a lot about toxic masculinity. And so, are there benefits for some people to choose to be in their masculine and some others to choose to be in their feminine? What do you see?
Well, you know, I look at it from a wider view to start, and masculine and feminine is kind of like yin and yang. It's masculine and feminine is within every single person. And when you separate those polarities out in a relationship, for example, it can really create a deeper experience of love. And I really like to separate the energies of masculine and feminine from gender because some women have a very strong masculine, some men have a very strong feminine, and it's really about finding through the individual couple what works for them, 40% masculine, 60% feminine, or whatever it is to kind of play. And but when you think about it, the masculine and the feminine within an individual creates a sense of wholeness. So I really, when I'm working like with someone individually one-on-one, I will look at what is strong in them. What's the stronger energy? Are they more masculine dominant or more feminine dominant? And then I help to kind of strengthen the muscle of the other polarity so that they have a sense of wholeness within themselves. And I find that when someone goes to one extreme without the other, there is a feeling of imbalance, and life doesn't flow as easily.
I've heard many times that one can only be happy in a relationship if one is happy by oneself. Is it the same thing?
Um, well, it's hard to try to go into relationship, and get all of your needs met in the relationship. I think that's a myth of relationship. Some of our needs will absolutely get met, and ideally, we're moving into an experience where we're amplifying love and enjoyment and the goodness of life. But I do believe that a lot of the work of balance does lie on the individual.
Wonderful. And so I lead men's groups. I don't lead women's circles. You lead women's embodiment circles. Do you also lead men's groups?
No, I coach men individually, but I don't lead any men's groups. No, not yet.
And so could you lead a men's group?
Yes, but I feel like there's a lot more qualified men to lead a men's group, you know? I feel like where can serve really well is because I'm primarily in feminine, right? And I'm female. So to lead women is definitely a strong suit for me.
Do you tend to attract mainly women who have more of a feminine compared to women who have a strong masculine?
Um, that's a good question. I I tend I think just collectively in society, in the culture that we live in, women tend to have more of a masculine shell because patriarchy and the way the culture, the priorities that we collectively hold are more about pushing and going and getting things and succeeding. They're more the masculine traits that we have held up as being important and of greater value in the culture. So most women do have a stronger masculine shell, and it can really bring a sense of unbalance and a disruption to our systems if we are in a masculine shell for too long. So I definitely can see um, more of my clients do come to me with more of a masculine shell, I'd say.
It was interesting because I'm seeing the mirror where a number of men that come to me are men who have a strong feminine shell, nice guys.
Yeah.
And I work with them at dissolving that shell. And
Yeah.
so, on your end, how do you help your female clients dissolve that masculine shell to get to their feminine essence?
Yeah. No, it's quite a journey. And one of the first things that I find is really important is creating a new context, creating a bigger context for actually valuing the qualities of the feminine, because out there in the world they're not portrayed in a really healthy way and in a strong way. Softness is not portrayed as something that's like, oh, let's all be soft. And so really just starting to explain and create a new understanding of the importance of the feminine is tends to be the first step a lot of times. And then it's once I kind of enlist their mind, then it's a little bit of a surrender dance. It's like, okay, trust me, and can you follow into me leading you into a softer place in yourself? And then the exploration of what it feels like to actually be in the feminine for most women is such a coming home. And it's such, once they have a taste of like, oh, thank God, once there's a landing in the feminine, it's it's like, okay, I just want to live here. And then I work with a lot of people. I get them into their feminine, and then they're like, well, how do I create through the feminine? How do I get life done through the feminine? And then that's when it's like, okay, well, we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We don't throw your masculine out. We kind of have to swing to one side so that you can experience your feminine, but then bring in your uh, strong points in your masculine as well that help you to get your daily tasks done and help you to create structure for your life and help you to be grounded in the world a little bit more. So it's really about the weaving of both of them.
The weaving, and it seems that by um, looking at both, you enable them to be able to make choice in the moment about which strength, which type of leadership to exert, to show up with.
Yeah, it's really important when you can flow in both your masculine and feminine, just like you said. Then there is choice, and it's like, okay, what is the moment calling? What is the moment needing more of? The moment when you're driving your kids around and trying to get them to school or whatever. The moment needs more of your masculine directive quality. But when your children are in bed and it's you and your partner, it's like, okay, what does this moment need? It needs more of feminine softness. And I work with women on this a lot, how do I transition from one to the other? Because a lot of our life in the external, the day-to-day mundaneness of life really does need our masculine energy to be in relationship with it in that way. And then it's with our lover. It's when it's in the in between times. It's in the quietness of the day. How can we land and really soften and relax into it?
That's wonderful. So, with the men I coach and the men in the men's group, I somehow teach them on how to invite their feminine partner to be more in their feminine. And so, I would love to have you repeat, just so people know it's just not men wanting more feminine, but somehow women benefit also from being their feminine, being invited by their masculine partner.
Well, Well, it depends on how they're being invited by their masculine partner. I'll say that.
Hmm.
That's very important.
So, yes, so please share more about good ways of inviting and bad ways.
Hmm. Asking your woman to be in her feminine is probably a really bad way.
So basically using words.
Yeah, and
Okay.
you know, but teasing her a lot of for the feminine, what really works for the feminine is actually physical touch, grabbing her hips, and squeezing a little bit, or pulling her closer to you. There's ways in which the feminine will naturally arise in the moment, and those ways tend to be much more effective. Physical touch or command, like, hey, get over here, stop that. Command oftentimes can kind of make a woman like melt just naturally, like, ah, yeah. um Being more directive with the like the words and that kind of stuff can really, for both, in both directions. Like if a woman tells a man what to do, it's not going to work for him to step into his masculine very well. And it's same for women. If the man is like directing her, it's not going to work as well as if there's more body language and more of a, if you want your woman to soften, you need to harden. Yeah, you need to like come forward in your energy and be more directive in your energy. It's a lot about the subtlety of the energetics with masculine and feminine that really work the best.
One of the things I do with my clients is when I work with a couple is I invite the man to not move, and then his feminine partner starts to move, and then I'm saying intentionally start moving, and when he starts moving suddenly she becomes rigid, and then I invite him to start becoming straight spine, stop smiling, and instantly it's not even milliseconds, it's nanoseconds. It's really amazing.
Yeah. The feminine
Oh.
really wants and longs for the solid ground to expand and unfold. She's longing for it. She's desperate for it almost. Like, please, just stay still long enough with your mouth. It's true, the mouth closed. Like, close your mouth, a deep breath, and just be there. And if you just trust in that as a masculine being, she will start to unfold. She can't help it. She's like, most feminine beings I know are just like, please give me somewhere that I can just soften a little bit. Yeah, it's pretty
So
magical. That's why I love polarity.
I agree. And so
Yeah.
many men know what I would somehow call the porn way, where basically they pay something or it's free, but with ads or whatever, and they see a woman swoon, but somehow without having to create it. And
Mhm.
so, how much and then men struggle in real life with their partner to learn to create it. And so, do you have any hints for men listening on how it is for a woman to be invited? Because the why, the purpose is really what drives the masculine.
Mhm. So, what are you asking me? What would invite the feminine from the masculine?
Yeah, what does it do to the feminine when the masculine invites his partner into her feminine? What does it do to
What does
her,
it mean for
to
her?
her heart, to her body, to her emotions?
Oh yeah, it's so healing. You know, I believe that most women in our bodies, there's epidemic of autoimmune disease and cancer and physical dysregulation of the body, and I very much directly attribute that to the masculine and feminine being out of balance so much in most women. And so it's such a healing for a woman to land in her feminine physically. It's a healing, it's a rebalancing of the hormones. When we soften and relax, the hormones start to secrete in the body in a different way. The adrenals relax, and there's more of a flow internally, just physically. Emotionally, when the feminine has a space to land and soften in her body, there's usually a release, like, because most women are walking around really pent up and holding. So when there's a man that they trust and they feel an integrity in and holding a ground, she'll just, oh, and she won't even realize it. But a lot of times there might be tears that come forward first, and kind of an off gassing of like, oh. And if you don't put story to it as a feminine being, if you don't put story to the wave of emotion, it will come and go much quicker. It will just move through. The more we try to make meaning out of our emotional expression, the more we get stuck in it. So
Is it
go
is
ahead.
it because judgment is masculine?
No, I think judgment's human.
Hmm.
But it's a lot. I think it's more about the pent upness, that there's not enough spaces and places for women and for the feminine, and this is in men too, for the feminine in all of us to really have the permission to break down and let go and grieve and feel and be more deeply connected to whatever we've been storing in the truth of our bodies and our hearts.
So what I'm hearing is that the more you're in touch with your sensations, the more you can let go of the stories and the quicker and deeper you can have those cycles and let go of the masculine shell and get into one's feminine.
Yeah. And then can we keep going on it? Because it's like the benefit, the the benefit of releasing and softening and off gassing and all of that is that once you're just kind of more relaxed in your feminine, the feminine is the energy of pleasure. The feminine is, it's like the feel good quality of life. Feminine is, it's eros, it's love, it's intimacy, it's energy, it's aliveness, it's the juice of life for men, for women. It's really that um, fountain that we all kind of want to play in, you know. So it's a huge benefit for all of us, men and women, to be able to learn how to tap in and access it, quicker and more integrated in our daily life.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the impressions I have is that somehow women are their own worst enemy in terms of letting go. You know, there is such attachment to the masculine shell,
Mm.
and likely there is, a lack of a solid partner and a lack of practice with
Yep.
one's partner that makes it very difficult. And somehow, as a result, somehow staunchly holding onto it and not relaxing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's both. It's both and, right? It's like she doesn't know how to release in herself, and she doesn't have the trust. That's a big thing for the feminine. She needs a sense of safety and trust in some sort of stable, solid ground, whether that be her partner or whether that be some other structure that's holding her, like a women's group or a container. Or, I often talk about, like, for women, just, it's like in your practice, push against something solid and strong so that you can feel something else that's holding you outside of having to hold yourself. So it's both and. She needs to learn how to release for herself, and then start to create and invite the experiences in the external world to hold her, including a partner, yes, but then also looking for other areas. Because the other thing that I find is a lot of women who are in this work, right? They're like, they really kind of can get like, well, I don't trust my man, and my man's not practicing, and my man's not showing up, and all of this kind of thing. And it's like, well, okay, how can you be the invitation for greater presence in your partner? I'm a huge advocate of getting away from, she's not soft enough and he's not present enough. It's like, I don't like the finger pointing at all, because we're we're all guilty of not being in our fullest selves, no matter what. And so it's a little bit more, I like to really help men and women become more of an invitation for what they want in life in general. And all, to take that even a step further, how can we actually be a stand for healing in our partners, healing in the men in our lives, and for the men to be a stand for healing in the women, in the feminine, you know? And so it's really this shift in attitude of, come on, let's get to it, and you're not doing it for me, and smile and get harder, and all these snappy things that really I do see in the polarity world, that it's kind of nauseating. It's like, where's the heart? We forgot the heart. Beyond polarity, where's the oneness of our connection and the humanity in our connection? That has to be in place so much, oftentimes, before we can move into the place of polarizing each other. So I tend to work with that we would call it stage 2, right? Way of relating. And then when that's really healthy, that is what creates a sense of safety and trust. When it's like, oh, I see you, I see your human struggle, I see the pain that you're in. And when that's reciprocated, there's a sense of connection and safety in the nervous system. And then there's an immediate bridge into the ability to polarize each other. But it's from the ground of sameness that polarity arises.
Please say more.
Non-dualism, so what from the state of, I'm going a little bit further out,
Go for it.
but non-dualistic oneness, when we can see the sameness, when we can walk with each other on our path as two humans trying as hard as we can in this life, there's a sense of safety that we get. There's a sense of heart bridging that happens in that moment, right? You breathed, you relaxed, you took a deeper breath when I was saying some of that. I tracked that. It's like, it just like, oh yes, healing. Oh, like, oh yeah, I feel you. I see you. Yeah. I see the struggle, and I see the greatness. It's like when we can really be in the human connections, forget the hot, sexy, steamy levels, but when we can be in the humanness of life with each other and really entrain there with each other, that is the ground from which polarity, there's safety, and then there's a natural blossoming of each individual. Like, oh, you see me, and oh, you see me. Okay, well, now I feel safe, and now I can show you a little bit more of my playfulness. I can show you a little bit more of my intensity. I can show you whatever it is that's really true for me, and it's pretty much usually very organic and natural. Then there's a natural polarization if like, okay, we feel safe, we feel connected. Now, what happens if you're a masculine being, primarily masculine, what happens if I step more into my masculine and tell you to get over here and sit on my lap? That creates, if there's that bridge of connectivity, that will create the opening. If you want to consciously step into one of the polarities, your partner would probably respond and be like, okay, and come over and soften and relax in this playful dance of separating the polarities. So it's kind of
So
fun.
so it comes from two humans being equal out of nothingness, emptiness. And it seems that you need to have that ground of trust and relationship and knowing your partner is there for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And I wouldn't say it's not necessarily out from a ground of nothingness, but it's from a ground of realness. Like the
Okay.
realness of life, the realness of the struggle, the struggle is real, right? It's like rather than you being a man and me being a woman, or you being in your masculine and me being in my feminine, it's about we're the same. We're two humans. So finding the points of sameness. We're two parents trying to, we're two whatever. However you have the sameness, and it just comes down to being human, really. Two humans walking on this planet. It's hard. And just feeling into that struggle is it's really important. Compassion,
So,
empathy.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, is it the same as saying, as a couple, whatever the level of dependency with each other, we co create? And we, by being more aware of it, we can then have choices to create trust and create a relationship and connection, and then polarity versus create strife and blame and, all those other things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really, I work with a lot of couples on moving out of resentment and into validation and praise. You know, moving in like really it's changing the lens at which you're viewing the relationship, putting on a different set of glasses to where it's like, okay, every day, 3 times a day, how can you validate your partner to your partner? Verbally, physically, how can you take a stance of they're doing the best they can and how can I be a supporting force in their life, right? And then so once there's that bridge of love and acceptance between the two, then it's like, okay, then we I can teach you the dance of polarity, because polarity is actually the easier part. It's okay, you do a few things and you can create that spark, that polarized spark, the arc or spark. But it's learning how, teaching people how to love each other and tend to each other sometimes takes a little bit longer.
The essence for me is, or at least of my purpose, is to liberate love. And I have the sense that polarity play and polarity practice is a really good place to do that.
Hmm.
What is your view? What is your work on?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I think in an ideal world, there's some shortcomings to polarity. And, for the masses that haven't done a lot of transformational work, I think stepping into polarity can sometimes be challenging, honestly. It's super fun, but unless you have, it's kind of like the table. It, but unless you have the legs underneath, the table's not going to sustain the relationship in any way, right? So just having polarity, it's a path absolutely to a greater expression of love, to a greater experience of the divine in moments, yeah, and in peak moments, really, in bed, or and it's like, um, I just keep coming back to the legs. It's like, and the general population of relationship, and where I'm seeing the lack of love and the lack of understanding and the lack of validation and support of, those are the things that create the legs on which the polarity table can be stand on, sit on, and yeah, be supported.
How much of that learning to love comes from lessening the built up resentment?
Oh,
Is that
so
is that correlated?
oh yeah, for sure.
Ugh.
So
Yeah.
we come to our partners with so much, we're pent up from an unprocessed childhood, right? And then we get into relationship and then we start, it's like just keep adding to the basket of resentment that we're walking around with, the suitcases or whatever, the baggage. And it's absolutely, it's that's the individual work, because so much of what we carry is not actually from our partner. It's from our childhood, it's from our parents, it's from, yeah, past experiences, that our partner is probably adding 10% on top of the heap, but didn't really create the heap. And so if you're someone that's really dissatisfied often with your partner in relationship, there's definitely some deeper work to do, honestly, on your own. um, and then taking 10% of the disgruntledness that you carry to partner. But probably 90% of our deeper struggle is an internal process that needs to be worked separate from the relationship.
Do you recommend partners work with each other's therapizing each other, like each other's therapist, or would you recommend the opposite?
Uh, 90% no, 10% yes.
Mhm.
But 90%, and this takes two people. This takes changing the culture of the relationship because uh, if both people are really committed to growing and changing, then it's great. You guys go to your separate corners and process what you need to, and then have your clearing conversation with each other once a week or whatever it is, uh, so that there's enough space to keep love flowing, you know. But that means that both partners are willing and um, taking on doing their deeper work by themselves with people who can hold them. So support and people that can hold them accountable and truthful and, really holding them to the fire on their deeper process of their own healing. So important.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Many of the women I work with tell me that most of the men are not conscious. What is your view on that?
I understand. I can relate, and it's like, so what are you going to do about it, rather than, again, it comes back to like the he's not this or that, or and part of it is, I think, a lot of it comes down to, well, there's a couple parts. One is our unhealed feminine's unhealed father wounds, where she needs her man to fulfill all of these parts of her life to make her feel complete and whole and loved and tended and all of these things. And it's just somewhat unrealistic, honestly. So when a woman is like, well, he's not, and da, 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 he needs to, da, 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 if that's happening a lot, I tend to go like, okay, well, what's your relationship to your father? And how was it like growing up with your dad? And what was missing? And going into the father wound a little bit more and really starting to excavate that out with her. So that's one part of it. And then the other part, when, my man's not conscious enough. Well, okay, what are your needs? What is it? What are your top needs for a partner? What is it that you want them to fulfill for you? And we weed out the ones that's like, oh, that's actually your father's job, not your partner's job, right? So we weed out the father needs. And then it's like, you know, I find that if we take the father wound or the mother wound out of the list of needs in relationship, it really comes down to the list of needs gets a lot smaller. And what we actually need and want our partners for is maybe a third of the list rather than it being the whole thing. And, this goes into a much larger conversation about, how we all live in these nuclear boxes individually with our partners. And I think the setup of how we relate in is out of kilter. I don't think we would be living day in, day out with our partners. I don't think we would be 24/7. I think we would have a lot more spaciousness where we would see them, even if we were in deep, intimate connection and relationship, it would just be a different flow of life if we were truly in alignment. So that's part of the conversation. And then another part of the conversation really comes down to, okay, well, how are you going to evoke and share from the depth of your heart your longing for your partner to meet you and reveal the heartbreak, and reveal the sadness of your partner's lack of presence. I think that's a huge part of it. Yeah. and and then getting into a deeper compassionate experience with your partner, like, oh, he's not able to be as conscious as I want. Why is that? What's happening? What happened for him? And start to get curious, because I think a lot of men need, and don't even realize it, a lot of deep healing. And it's not that it's her job, the partner's job, the feminine's job to heal the man, the masculine. It's not, but we definitely have the ability to. The feminine love light that we run in our bodies can be the most healing, nourishing energy for the masculine. And
I
so,
agree.
yeah. So I often look at like, okay, well, are you willing to actually, without stepping into their mother wounds, are you willing to set up like, babe, can I give you a healing? I just want to love the shit out of you right now and just like give you some love, and healing touch. And um so it's being willing to look at a little bit more at the nuanced levels of what's going on for your man, for the masculine in general on the planet. There's I talk to so many men and they're just like, I was talking to one man recently where he was like, it's so hard because I'm longing, and he's dating, I'm longing for a woman to come in to be in relationship with me. And I said, yeah, but you're there, you have so much neediness. And he's like, I know, I really feel that, but it's also true because I really do. I need that, her energy, the love. I was like, yeah, I know. I get that because she does have that capacity to really be the soothing balm of your soul. But where can you get that besides her? Where else? So then it becomes a deeper conversation for the men in the men's groups, right? It's like, where else can you get the feminine healing? Yes, your feminine partner, it would be wonderful if she's willing to give you some healing love, maybe a little bit of the time, and then starting to wake up to the fact that that's what you need, and where can you get it elsewhere? How can you go spend time in nature and really get absorbed and washed by the feminine essence of life, and going and creating environments to really be receiving that deep healing.
It's very interesting because the retreat I attended that you and Travis led, it was a 2.5 day retreat, and we had lots of, polarity practice. But on Sunday morning, the men, we just went out on a hike and we basically just relaxed on around the river, and we had a cold plunge and just, relax together being men. And when I look back at the retreat, there were very potent moments in relationship, but there was something so nurturing about being men relaxed together in nature.
Yeah, absolutely. Learning how
Yeah,
men with each other, learning how to really drop in and receive from the feminine, separate from a female or human body, is so, so, so important. Yeah, yeah,
I agree.
yeah. It's both
So
and,
what I
right? It's both and. It's from the partners. Can we all be willing to extend a little bit more healing love to each other, men and women? And then can we also be tapping into where to experience it more in the world?
So it's interesting because working with nice guys who are learning to stand in their masculine presence and to grow the capacity to be with whatever the feminine partner is throwing at them. I heard that first you invite women to basically learn to point less of a finger at their partner,
Mm.
and that is critical. I don't think women understand how men are shame driven or shame spiraling down. I'm not sure to say that.
Yeah,
And then also you mentioned curiosity as the second step. And I don't think it is men's experience that women around them are curious.
yeah. Yeah, we come with our lists. I mean, it's a dating epidemic. Everyone comes with their lists of expectations. And if you don't meet these expectations, well, I'm not going on a second date. It's this weird thing. It's like, what can you give me rather than how can I give? and it's heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking, and it really comes from the deeper woundology that we hold, where we aren't deeply nourished in ourselves and resourced in ourselves enough to feel like we can extend our love. So it's this taking, this constant, like, what can I get? What can I get? It's hard.
Mhm. And Disney culture does a good job with it too, and romantic, honeymoon forever, and
Yeah.
yeah. I have a question for you. I would love to get your input. I have the sense that porn is leading many men astray because somehow they have the impression they get something, but overall it feels very disempowering and somehow depleting their bank accounts, depleting their ability to be in relationship and in connection with their partner.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a hard one and I think it's really important for men to stop watching porn, because when they come with all of that, um, it's this overstimulation of the body, right? And it's like, um, it's just not reality. It's like I talked to my co-parent and we talked to our son and not quite yet our daughter, but our son's coming into puberty. It's like, we've had to talk to him about porn. Like, porn is acting and is so far from real life, and when the system, when a male body is used to, like, okay, we do this and get off. And I've had women tell me that they've dated men where it feels like they're just like, okay, they to their play with their nipples a certain way and they're fast and their clit and they're doing all these things, and it's like, wow, it's like he's living out a porn on her body, and it's like there's not this sense of really meeting the moment of who you're with. There's a lack of presence. Porn creates a storyline that gets in the way of lack of presence and lack of sensation with the person you're with. And yeah, I think it's very distorting.
So I agree. And in addition to that lack of presence, does it somehow seriously endanger the capacity to attune to a feminine partner?
Oh, completely. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. When do the
Yeah.
nipples, do the clit, walk like this, bend her over, do like this. It's like, what? It's like, oh, I don't feel anything at all, right?
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
this. It's like a script. It's almost like the
Yeah.
sexual script that porn is a script that it just gets run through the male body. That's really disconnecting. Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. And it looks like these days porn is the main sex ed source for many men and younger boys.
Oh, I hope not. Oh, my co-parent, he's leading boys' initiation weekends as much as he can to help.
Wonderful.
Yeah, there are other ways, and we have to really look for them and seek them out, because we cannot rely on porn to educate. Yeah, yeah. It's the
So,
role of the parents, really. It's like to seek out and to not. I talk to a lot of parents actually who they really are like, have you had sexual conversations with your children? And they're like, a lot have not. It's like, what are you doing? What are you relying on? They're like, they'll just get it. It's like, no, they're not just going to get it. And if they are on that track of just getting it, it is through that born osmosis. Yeah.
I'm seeing quite a bit of men who are addicted to porn, some shades of gray.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot even fathom how heartbreaking it must be for their wife, feminine partner. Do you have any recommendation for their feminine partner on how to invite their partners to stop porn and engage more sexually with them?
Mm-hmm. So there's a couple things that came to my mind when you we're talking. And one is there is a need for in men and women for dark sexual energy, darker sexual energy. Um, it's it's actually one of the more nourishing sexual energies for both partners. But there's a lot of taboo. There's a lot of shame around dark sexual energy. Yeah, and so um, it's asking like, okay, if he's addicted to porn, what is the nutrient that he's getting, right? What is the deeper need, the nutrient that he's getting from that? And it's probably a big rush of washing of feminine energy. Feminine sexual energy just getting washed through a masculine body is so nourishing. And so it's like, okay, well, if that's the need, and if that's the nourishment, how can I start to, as his partner, how can I start to maybe bring a little bit more of that feminine washing and maybe a little bit of more dark sexual energy? Maybe, it's, I would say, can you, as the woman in the relationship, start to have a conversation like, okay, I notice you're watching porn. I don't want to shame you. Got it. I can tell in our connection that it's going on, because every woman I've ever talked to can feel, no question, if her partner is watching porn or not. It's obvious to most female bodies. So then it would be like, okay, can you tell me? Can you explain it to me? Can you show me? Like, what is it that you're loving? What is it that's really turning you on? Like, what are the parts that are really getting you off? When you understand your partner's porn choices, you'll have an entry point into how their psyche is working and what are the deeper needs that they have. And then having the conversations like, hey, I want to start to move into some of this with you. So it's a courageous conversation to be willing to meet your partner in their deeper needs. And this is a huge topic that I work with couples on, because if there is an unfulfilled need in the relationship, it will absolutely destroy the relationship. Our needs, whether we own them or not, dictate the health of the relationship. If our needs are getting fulfilled, whether that's, like having multiple partners at the same time, or whether that, it doesn't matter. But if you can't own your deeper needs to your partner, you will find somewhere to fulfill them. And that's where we get into shadow. That's where we get into adultery. That's where most conversations I have about adultery are the partner's unfulfilled need getting met outside of the relationship. So it's a much deeper conversation around our needs and how can we start to fulfill them? How can we be really honest, non-judgmental, and compassionate, and actually start to step towards the fulfillment of our partner's needs? It's a big deal.
Oh, wonderful. I love the examples you gave of feminine leadership, feminine invitation. And that's beautiful because what I'm seeing too much, and partially maybe my own, views of looking at the world is the feminine partner somehow telling her man, you don't do this enough, you don't do that enough, you do this, you do that. And so basically the stopping the working on the resentment, stopping the blaming, getting curious seems to leave the room for what you're offering, which is how about we set up a play with that? How about we set up a practice with that?
Yeah, this is the question to bridge into deeper connectivity with your children, with your partner, with a family member, with your parents. In any moment of a feeling of disconnection, the question is, what do you need? What do you need right now? And being willing to really listen and go deeper. Like, okay, I get, it's like sometimes it takes a couple cuts to get to the deeper need, right? But really starting, and again, this is changing the culture kind of question. It's like, are you willing to be curious enough to find out what this human that you're engaged with really needs to feel connected, what they need to feel loved, what they need to feel sexually turned on and fulfilled, what do they genuinely need outside of your expectations, your desires, and your agenda? They are a separate universe unto themselves. Are you willing to bridge and get to know their side through their needs?
Beautiful. Yeah. One question I have is the difference between submitting and surrendering.
Mm.
And so I'm seeing more and more singles and couples around me talk about BDSM. So I'm definitely, seeing, oh, there is a submitting play there. But every time I heard the word submit, even if it's not BDSM related, there is a part of me that cringes.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems that it is very different. Some people think it's the same, but it feels very different.
Very different. Absolutely. Submission is much more a power dynamic, right? And where surrendering is much more a devotional dynamic. We could say this like I love the energetics. Submission is a lot about the solar plexus, third chakra. It's power, right? And it's like, okay, what's the power dynamic of submitting it, where there's not a lot of heart. The heart is not involved in submission. It's just someone having power over, where surrendering is so much heart. Surrendering is, I surrender, I soften and surrender as a devotional act of love. It's so much about the heart and the fulfillment of the heart and the bringing forward of love. I surrender to bring more love into the moment. Yeah.
I love it because when I look at me going in my masculine, this is not, me puffing up like, Schwarzenegger superhero. This is about me relaxing and surrendering into my masculine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. One's about love and one's about power.
Yeah. And so are they mutually exclusive? I know that if there is one way power, power over, the person, one of the partners has only the ability to do that. They don't know to do power with. I can imagine that there is no real love, but can you have real love and power over power play at the same time?
For sure. That's when it gets super fun. Yeah. 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 They're not mutually exclusive, but is it, I would say it's better to start in the heart connection and then go into the power dynamic. I wouldn't start in power dynamic and try to, you know, but they're not mutually exclusive, probably from both sides. You know,
Got it.
I
Got
haven't
it.
experienced it so much from the power dynamic into love, but I definitely have played from the surrendered love dynamic into power. It's super fun. It's very hot. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And that's where my heart cringes is when I hear people talking about the play from the power play and trying to get the heart and doesn't feel right.
No, it's hard. I think that's hard a hard way to go. Yeah.
Mhm. So over the next few days, my next video is on sexless marriages.
Hmm.
And so I'm pretty sure some couples are happy with it, but I'm pretty sure that many, many couples are miserable. I would love to get your input.
Oh yeah. That just leads deep into deeper questions of like, okay, well, what's the point, of your relationship? Um, and it can probably only last for so long if it's sexless, and is it really serving? And it might be, that your primary agreement in the relationship is child rearing, and um, there is no space for the deeper chemistry of intimacy and things like that, sexual intimacy. And then I would also look at, there's some red flags in that. If there's a sexless marriage, there's probably one of the two, stuck in trauma. Yeah. someone's stuck in trauma and not looking at it, numb and shut down in a survival pattern and not able to get through it, yeah, I don't think it's natural. I don't think it's a natural expression when someone's living from their wholeness and their truest selves. I think it's a distorted expression of life, honestly.
I agree. The trauma, is it more on one side, more men, more women, or do you see it both ways?
The pattern tends to be that I've seen a lot with the people I've worked with is a woman has one kid. It happened to me, one kid or two kids, and or it happened to me after I had my second child. I went into a trauma response in my body, and it brought up all of my epigenetic pain and lineage stuff, and just so much healing that it disconnected me from my partner, and I shut down, and it took a lot to really move through it. So it often can occur. That's what I've seen a lot, that it happens in the woman, and then that's when there really needs to be a deep dive with partner, without partner, into the deeper healing, um, where the woman shuts down, and then the man holds it for so long, and then is like, "Hey, I'm starving over here. I got to do something," or they're not that conscious of it, and they start to cheat or step out, and yeah, it's hard.
One of the dynamics I'm seeing is of nice guys who somehow are very patient, but after a while they're too patient, and then there is some built up resentment from why are you so patient?
Yeah, yeah, that makes
Mhm.
sense, right? And it's really both partners have to be willing to ask, like, hey, what do you need? Again, what do you need to feel more alive? If 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 there's a sexless marriage happening, it's like, what do you really need? How can we help you? How can we support you? What's the, and it's like going down the journey of the deeper healing to get to that place of um so I think if it's the man not having his needs fulfilled, it's like, how can you support her more, and how can you step towards her more and champion her healing for her, and then but also to ask her, it's like, please, please, I need you to do the deeper work so you can show up again in love with me. So yeah, it's hard space.
That's a, that's a
Relationship.
question. Yeah, that's a question I don't see often, of men somehow being willing and courageous enough
Yeah.
to ask their partners to do their work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's scary because when a woman gets on her masculine shell, she can be really put that for the energetic force with a feminine shell. It can be very like, oh, I can't go near that, and yeah, I can see how many men back away.
And so most men don't have the capacity to be with that somehow a chaos of energy without feeling that they're walking on eggshells.
Yeah, yeah. The feminine can be very toxic, no question. And it can be really damaging. That's where it's like you have your list of what your man is not doing for you, and you are spewing toxic feminine all over the place. Toxic feminine partners are not processing their own shit, and they're expecting their partner to be present for their toxic shit, and it's an unrealistic ask. It's like, oh, well, he can't hold my pain. Well, of course he's not going to hold your pain, because it's the pain you've been storing for the last 30, 40, 50 years of your life. It's not his responsibility to hold that pain for you. Are you willing to start to do your deeper work rather than just projecting it onto your man like he's not showing up for you? I clip a lot of women, a lot of these feminine women who are coming to me complaining. It's like, okay, yeah, we're going to stop right there, and we're going to put you on the mat and doing your work for yourself, and I will be your masculine holding structure and space for you. Go, let's do this. And taking the burden off of the masculine partner, to some degree. really important.
It's very interesting. And I'm hearing you say that my body relaxes. Ah, some sense. Thank you. It
Yeah.
feels, it feels that the oppression that so many men receive somehow from their women and from women in society, I feel that you're somehow penetrating against that, with your masculine feels helps me relax. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Completely. There's the toxic feminine and there's the toxic masculine. And, we have to be willing to call it out in our partners, and we have to be willing to take responsibility for it in ourselves. Both. It's always both and. It's never just them and it's never just you. It's never, it's always both and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to ask you more about the toxic feminine, but I think it will be for another video.
Yeah.
Before you and I end this conversation, there is one thing that I think would be beneficial for the men who are listening. Would you be willing to share from a feminine point of view what women gain from sex that men typically are oblivious on?
Mm.
And let me add a piece is somehow many of the men I know are on eggshells about asking their woman for sex because they've been told again and again and again and again that sex is just for men. And so could you share more if there is something that could be helpful for them to say, yes, please learn to invite me?
Mm. I I mean, I don't it's so far from my realm of truth that I'm like, really? Some women don't understand that sex isn't mutually beneficial. That feels really far for me. And um, I'm trying to put myself in those shoes. Yeah, I think it would be, again, that just brings up, like, if that's the woman's experience, if that's truly her experience, there is some deeper unwinding of deeper wounds that really need to be tended to. There's just a lack of connection to her own body and her own pleasure and her own internal experience that she's missing, that um, can't get her to being in that intimate connection at all, that I think is really, really important to explore. Like, truly. Yeah, because I think, again, to me, sex and food and nature are like the three top things for the reasons for being in the body and on this planet. And so if you're missing out on those, if you're not in full enjoyment of those, in full enjoyment of your human experience, right? The animal human experience of having this body and being on this planet. It's how can you, and this is what I work with a lot with women. It's like, how can you get into that deeper relationship inside yourself so that you can really enjoy the experience of this life and the intimacy and all of the blessings and gifts of being here in a body. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Sarah, thank you for that wonderful conversation and may it benefit many.
May it benefit many. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. So enjoyable to talk with you.
If this conversation I just had with Sarah Entrup inspired you to liberate more love and playfulness in your relationship, or to create a relationship in which there will be more, please hit the like button below and subscribe so you can be notified when I publish new juicy content. And please share with all you believe would benefit. I look forward to seeing you very soon.